There are stories that describe events, and there are stories that describe conditions of the soul. The world of Lorcan Castlebar is both. It is a place where the landscape itself seems divided between faith and machinery, where every street and sky and silence is charged with the tension of opposites. To speak of this world is to speak of conflict, not the crude collision of armies, but the quiet, enduring war between matter and meaning. Castlebar's age is one of symmetry and fracture. Two powers divide the earth like surgeons cutting along an old scar. To the west stands Starva, crimson and relentless, its empire built upon the conviction that perfection can be engineered. To the east rises Qamar, robed in midnight blue, a theocracy that claims salvation through submission. Each side believes itself complete. Each mirrors the other's fear, and between them, humanity becomes a field of experiment. The fortress city of Pyre is Starva's proudest child, a geometry of towers and surveillance, a place where obedience is measured in data and joy is a controlled substance. Concrete rises like doctrine. The streets hum with drones, their mechanical patience replacing the conscience of men. The citizens of Pyre wake to the voice of SOV, the system of virtue, and sleep beneath its gaze. Freedom here is not outlawed. It is simply unprogrammed. Far above, beyond the reach of smog and decree, there floats another vision, St. Christopher's Haven, where the air tastes of incense and old light. Here cathedrals have grown into orbit, their stained glass windows turning solar flares into sacraments. Monks walk among engineers, and the hum of prayer mingles with the vibration of reactors. It is the other half of humanity's divided heart, beauty instead of efficiency, reverence instead of regulation. Yet, even in Haven, hierarchy persists. Even holiness can harden into system. Between these realms moves Lorcan Castlebar, executor of ideological order, servant of the state, and secret heretic. He is the hinge upon which the novel's entire universe turns. Outwardly, he is a perfect functionary, a man whose loyalty has been tested and not yet found wanting. But beneath the uniform, rebellion whispers. On his shelves sit forbidden texts, manuals of revolution, handbooks of guerrilla strategy, and one ancient poem, older than history itself. The Exaltation of Inanna. He reads it at night when the cameras dim, as though the voice of a forgotten goddess might remind him that the human soul once sang before machines learned to measure its pitch. In his office stands a lamp that scatters surveillance light, and upon his wall a poster of the ocean. It is illegal, unremarkable, and absolutely essential, because the sea, endless, unregulated, untamed, is everything Pyre is not. When he looks at it, he remembers that truth does not require permission to exist. Duality defines him. He enforces the law, yet despises the cage it builds. He hunts dissent, yet hungers for it. Within his contradictions, the entire age is reflected. The same fracture that splits the world runs through his conscience like a fault line waiting to sing. But duality alone is not enough to sustain a civilization. Sooner or later, opposites collide. And in Castlebar's world, the collision takes the form of faith against control. Technology in Starva's dominion has become theology without transcendence. Its gods are made of code. Its angels wear armor of carbon and chrome. The SOV watches, calculates, corrects. The drones enforce law with the indifference of elements. Even immortality has been mechanized through the Spectre device, that obscene imitation of eternity which copies a man's mind while hollowing out his soul. For those in power, it is the final luxury to live forever as data, unbothered by decay, conscience, or doubt. And yet, doubt leaks in. Castlebar notices glitches in the drones, stammers in the system, small mercies of imperfection that remind him every empire, even digital, can rot from within. It is through such cracks that faith returns. Faith, that ancient software of the spirit, reappears not as nostalgia but as insurgency. The Knights of St. Sylvester march through forgotten corridors singing binary hymns, their prayers encrypted into frequencies that unmake demons and confuse machines. They are warriors of paradox, wielding the sword of belief and the circuitry of knowledge, proving that technology is not evil by nature, only by intention. Their creed is simple, that the divine can speak through any medium, even silicon. Among them arises Amriel, the healer, the condemned, the resurrected. He is the story's heartbeat, the mirror in which both tyranny and hope recognize themselves. To some, he is blasphemy incarnate. To others, the return of a promise too long deferred. He performs acts no algorithm can explain, reweaving flesh and faith with a gesture. When he is crucified on a four-armed cross, fitting symbol for a universe of intersecting worlds, the regime records the event as a disturbance. When he rises 3 days later, the disturbance becomes a revelation, and Lorcan Castlebar, who once mocked belief as weakness, finds himself staring into the impossible and recognizing his own reflection. Faith and technology thus become more than opposing tools. They are competing definitions of what it means to be human. Starva teaches that perfection is the erasure of error. Amriel teaches that perfection is the forgiveness of it. One builds prisons of light, the other opens doors in darkness. But no transformation begins in theory. It begins in guilt, and Castlebar's guilt is vast. During an old campaign, one of those cleansings history likes to abbreviate, he followed an order to eliminate civilians. He obeyed. He remembers the recoil, the silence afterward, the faces that never aged. He has lived ever since in a twilight between confession and command. When the demon Abaddon forces him to speak the truth aloud, the words tear through years of practiced amnesia. He admits everything. The women, the children, the first shot fired by his own hand. The demon laughs, but something holy begins in that laughter, for only what is spoken can be forgiven. From that confession forward, his story ceases to be about survival and becomes about salvation. Each mission that follows, the search for Serena Erebus's missing emissary, the alliance with the Knights, the confrontation with Amriel, draws him further from the sterile certainties of Starva and closer to a faith he does not yet know how to name. Redemption in this universe is not granted. It is constructed from broken parts. By the time Castlebar kneels before the resurrected Amriel, he is no longer a servant of order, but a pilgrim of grace. The words he hears, "Your faith is your cloak and armor. Go out and fulfill your destiny." He rises as the world itself begins to tilt, the moral geometry of existence shifting toward a new equilibrium. His redemption is personal, but its resonance is cosmic. In him, the opposites finally converse. The machine learns reverence. Faith learns discipline. The human being, once a hostage between extremes, becomes the bridge itself. And so the three great themes, duality, the struggle between faith and technology, and the long passage toward redemption, reveal themselves as one movement of a single symphony. Duality sets the rhythm, faith and technology form the counterpoint, and redemption resolves the dissonance. Through them, the novel asks a question older than science and newer than tomorrow. When all that can be measured has been mastered, what remains of the immeasurable? The answer, if there is one, lies not in rebellion or retreat, but in integration. The future belongs not to those who destroy the machine, nor to those who worship it, but to those who remember why they built it. To serve life, not replace it. The tragedy of Starva is that it forgot its own origin, that technology was born from wonder, and wonder is a form of prayer. Lorcan Castlebar's journey, from executor to believer, from instrument to individual, is the map of that rediscovery. He begins in the cage of binaries, state and soul, guilt and duty, and ends standing before an uncharted horizon where both halves of creation meet. He is not absolved. He is awakened. And through him the narrative reminds us that freedom is not achieved by tearing down systems, but by reclaiming the conscience that built them. In the end, if the word end still applies, Castlebar's universe does not close like a book. It opens like a door. We sense vast forces gathering, mysteries not yet named, destinies deferred but not denied. The scope is too large for conclusion, too luminous for certainty. We are left instead with magnitude, the awareness that something immeasurable waits just beyond comprehension. And so the lecture must pause where revelation begins. For the story of Lorcan Castlebar is not merely about one man's salvation. It is the record of humanity remembering itself, a reminder that even in the most controlled of worlds, the heart still longs for the unquantifiable. The machine may catalogue every motion, but not meaning. It may mirror the face, but not the soul. Somewhere, beyond the surveillance of every empire, a man once sworn to silence stands beneath a sky he was told no longer existed. He looks upward, not to escape, but to listen. And in that listening, the universe holds its breath.